Hold on to yourself. Bartlett, you're 20 feet short of the wire. The Great Escape was not just a war movie. It was a survival experiment disguised as entertainment. Behind the barbed wire and heroics lay broken bones, freezing nights, and real danger that no stunt coordinator could predict. Cast egos collided, sets nearly collapsed, a German location turned treacherous. So today, we break open 20 weird facts about The Great Escape. Ready, soldier. Let's dig through the tunnels of truth. Fact number 20. The set was built on a real POW site. The Great Escape was filmed in Bavaria, not far from where actual Allied prisoners once dug for freedom during World War II. The crew discovered remnants of old camps scattered across the forest. This eerie authenticity bled into every frame. Extras who had fought in the war found the atmosphere almost unbearable. Director John Sturges demanded absolute realism, so the production rebuilt the entire Stalag camp plank by plank. The soil was frozen. Equipment failed daily. Some locals refused to approach the set out of superstition. What audiences saw as cinematic tension was in fact real human unease. It was not just a movie about prisoners, it was a ghost story shot on haunted ground. Fact number 19. Steve McQueen demanded his own editing rights. Steve McQueen was not just the lead. He was a storm inside the production. After seeing early cuts, he exploded with frustration, claiming his character felt weak and passive. He refused to promote the movie unless he could re-edit his own scenes. Sturges gave in. McQueen cut the footage to emphasize his lone wolf image, adding close-ups and trimming dialogue. The motorcycle chase that defines the film was partly shaped by his own edits. What the studio feared might be ego became cinematic legend. It turned McQueen into an icon of cool rebellion. Without that fight, the King of Cool might never have been crowned. It was not artistic disagreement. It was a declaration of war. Fact number 18. The real escapees hated the ending. The Great Escape may have thrilled audiences, but real survivors from the actual 1944 breakout were horrified. They said the film glamorized an event that ended in massacre. Of the 76 who fled, only 3 survived. The rest were executed by the Gestapo. Former POWs attended early screenings and left in silence. Sturges had originally written a darker ending, but the studio demanded a rousing climax to satisfy American audiences. What could have been a somber war memorial became a crowd pleaser. Behind the cheers hid ghosts of men who never came home. The Real Escape was not cinematic glory. It was tragedy, disguised as triumph. Now fact number 17. The tunnels actually collapsed during filming. To capture claustrophobia, the crew dug full-scale tunnels under the set. They were narrow, dark, and barely supported by wooden frames. During one scene, the structure gave way, trapping 2 extras for several terrifying minutes. Dust filled their lungs. Electric lights flickered out. The crew panicked until carpenters broke through. Sturges refused to rebuild the set elsewhere. He insisted they reinforce and keep filming to preserve authenticity. The cast dreaded those scenes, but the fear in their eyes was genuine. It was not acting. It was survival. What ended up on screen was art born from accident. When audiences gasped, the actors remembered the dirt that nearly buried them alive. Fact number 16. Charles Bronson's claustrophobia was real. Charles Bronson played Danny the Tunnel King, the man responsible for digging through endless dirt. In reality, Bronson had suffered from claustrophobia since childhood. The irony was cruel. Every day he crawled into narrow tunnels, his hands shaking, his breath short. Crew members often pulled him out between takes to keep him from fainting. Sturges tried to replace him, but Bronson refused. He said facing the tunnels was part of the character's truth. His terror on screen was painfully real. Years later, he admitted the role almost broke him. The Great Escape turned his phobia into performance. It was not bravery. It was endurance caught on film. Fact number 15. James Garner was a real-life scrounger. James Garner's role as Hendley the Scrounger wasn't an act. During his wartime service in Korea, he was known for trading supplies and bending rules to survive. On set, he used those same instincts. When the crew ran out of props, Garner would quietly find what they needed from nearby production units. He charmed German officials into lending real vehicles and even smuggled authentic uniforms past customs. The producers called it resourcefulness. Others called it theft with a smile. That sly grin on screen came from real confidence built in real conflict. It wasn't just method acting. It was a veteran slipping back into survival mode. Every smirk he gave reminded the crew that he wasn't pretending to be a hustler. He was one. Fact number 14. McQueen's motorcycle jump almost got him killed. That legendary jump over the barbed wire fence wasn't filmed on a soundstage. It happened on real Bavarian farmland. McQueen insisted on doing the stunt himself, though the insurance company threatened to shut the shoot down. He practiced for weeks on a Triumph TR6 trophy disguised as a German BMW. The first take went wrong, and he nearly lost control on landing. The second try became movie history. But he didn't stop there. McQueen later donned a German uniform and doubled as one of the pursuing riders chasing himself. What audiences saw as smooth and fearless was stitched together chaos. His co-stars called it madness. He called it fun. That moment wasn't choreography. It was a dare to death. Left fact number 13. The German authorities tried to shut it down. Filming a war epic in post-war Germany was never simple. The local government grew anxious that the movie portrayed Germans as brutal guards. Military consultants argued constantly with officials about uniforms and insignia. At one point, the Bavarian government considered revoking permits after local veterans protested. Sturgis refused to back down. He argued that truth required discomfort. For weeks, security officers visited the set taking notes and watching the extras. Cast members joked that the camp felt like a real prison again. When shooting wrapped, the crew left quietly overnight to avoid another investigation. It wasn't diplomacy. It was defiance wrapped in cinema. Fact number 12. The cast rebelled against the studio diet. Filming took months, and most of it involved sitting in mud or crawling through dirt. To keep costs low, the studio limited daily meals. Actors grew furious. Bronson and Garner led a revolt demanding better rations after one lunch consisted of cold soup and bread crusts. The catering staff quit mid-shoot. Eventually, the crew began sneaking into a nearby village cafe every night. McQueen turned it into a nightly ritual, bringing beer and guitars. Those hidden dinners rebuilt morale. The laughter and songs later inspired Sturgis to add more camaraderie scenes. The studio thought it was feeding prisoners. The actors made it a family. It wasn't protest. It was survival through unity. The fact number 11. The Great Escape. Nearly bankrupted its studio. United Artists expected a modest war drama. Instead, they got one of the most expensive productions of its decade. Building full-size barracks, real tunnels, and importing motorcycles drained the budget. Rain destroyed the first week's footage. Rebuilding cost a fortune. The studio begged Sturgis to cut the motorcycle sequence to save money. He refused, calling it the movie's heartbeat. Investors panicked, but Sturgis gambled everything on spectacle. When the film finally premiered, it became a global hit, saving United Artists from near financial ruin. Behind the victory poster stood months of fear that the company would collapse. The Great Escape didn't just break barriers, it almost broke the bank. Fact number 10. The real RAF veterans wept at the premiere. At the London premiere, real Royal Air Force veterans who had survived POW camps sat among celebrities. As the lights dimmed, they braced themselves. By the time the film ended, silence filled the room. Some wept quietly, others saluted the screen. They recognized faces, mannerisms, and even slang pulled straight from their own memories. Garner later said it was the most emotional screening he ever attended. It reminded him that behind the adventure tone lay real blood and loss. And if you are enjoying these hidden truths, go ahead and like and subscribe, because the second half gets darker. The next facts reveal how ego, politics, and tragedy nearly buried the entire film. Fact number 9. Richard Attenborough's breakdown was real. Richard Attenborough played Bartlett the Big X, the mastermind of the escape plan. Off camera, he carried the weight of the entire cast. The constant pressure of leadership and long shooting days in cold mud began to destroy him. Attenborough was suffering from exhaustion and guilt because his brother had been a real pilot during the war, who nearly faced capture. During one tense scene, he froze and forgot every line. Sturgis stopped the cameras and ordered everyone off set. The crew gave him a day to recover. What audiences saw as quiet command was a man channeling grief. His tears in the final scenes weren't scripted. They were memories surfacing. It wasn't acting. It was mourning, disguised as control. Fact number 8. The film ignored an entire nationality. The real Great Escape involved prisoners from multiple Allied nations. Poles, Norwegians, and Canadians played vital roles. Yet the final film focused almost entirely on Americans and Britons. That omission caused outrage in Poland, where former POWs felt erased. The producers claimed it was a decision based on box office appeal. The United States market demanded American heroes. What could have been a story of unity became a tale of selective memory. Years later, historians fought to restore credit to the forgotten participants. The film's silence became its own controversy. It wasn't patriotic storytelling. It was a rewrite of history made for ticket sales. Fact number 7. The barbed wire was real. Sturgis wanted the camp to feel like a genuine prison. He refused to use rubber or foam props. The barbed wire was authentic steel. During filming, actors accidentally cut themselves on it daily. Crew members rushed with first aid kits between takes. Bronson's hands were scarred for life from grabbing the wire during one escape scene. The studio begged for safer materials, but Sturgis refused. He said fake wire looked fake tension. The realism came at a price. The injuries were minor compared to the psychological weight of being trapped behind real barriers. The Great Escape didn't just show confinement, it inflicted it. Fact number 6. The Germans played extras in their own shame. Many background actors were local Germans hired to save costs. Few of them wanted to wear the uniforms of Nazi guards. Some had fought in the war as teenagers. During rehearsals, they wept quietly or looked away during execution scenes. The production team encouraged them to channel discomfort into performance. The result was uncanny realism. The fear in their eyes was not direction, it was memory. When filming wrapped, several extras refused payment, saying they wanted to atone for the past. The movie gave them a strange kind of catharsis. It wasn't employment, it was emotional exorcism. Fact number 5. The final scene was almost cut entirely. The powerful final sequence with McQueen's solitary capture almost vanished from the film. United Artists wanted a more triumphant finale with explosions and rescues. Sturgis fought back, saying the quiet ending carried the soul of the story. He filmed 2 versions to appease them. In test screenings, audiences cried at the original and shrugged at the revised cut. The studio relented. The sound of McQueen's motorbike engine fading into silence became one of cinema's most haunting moments. That single artistic stand turned a genre picture into legend. It wasn't defeat. It was truth preserved by stubbornness. Fact number 4. The score was written to hide sadness. Composer Elmer Bernstein was told to create an upbeat march to mask the darkness beneath the story. He later admitted it felt wrong, but he followed orders. The cheerful theme became iconic yet bittersweet. It played over scenes of death and despair, giving audiences an emotional contradiction they couldn't shake. Bernstein called it whistling past the graveyard. That melody outlived the movie itself, appearing in sports events and parades. But those who knew its context always heard the ghosts underneath. It wasn't celebration. It was defiance dressed in brass and snare drums. Fact number 3. Steve McQueen almost quit midway. Halfway through production, McQueen walked off the set. He believed his character had too few scenes and lacked purpose. Sturgis begged him to stay. Garner and Bronson intervened, convincing him that the film needed his rebellious energy. The studio rewrote several sequences, including the motorcycle chase, to give him center stage. His return electrified the cast. Suddenly, the movie had its heartbeat again. What began as an ego clash turned into creative resurrection. Without that standoff, The Great Escape might have been forgotten among countless war dramas. McQueen didn't just come back, he came back swinging. Fact number 2. The film was banned in several countries. Despite its popularity, The Great Escape faced bans in parts of Eastern Europe. Communist states accused it of glorifying Western soldiers and distorting wartime history. In the Soviet bloc, it was labeled imperialist propaganda. Copies were smuggled through black markets where underground film clubs screened it in secret. Viewers watched in silence, afraid of being reported. Over time, it became a symbol of artistic rebellion. What started as entertainment turned into forbidden history. The Great Escape escaped censorship itself and became a quiet act of defiance. Fact number 1. The real tunnel blueprints were used. Sturgis secured access to classified British military archives that contained the original tunnel blueprints from Stalag Luft III. The set designers copied them exactly down to the placement of sand traps and air pumps. When former prisoners visited, they wept at the accuracy. It wasn't a reimagining, it was reconstruction. The authenticity carried spiritual weight. Those blueprints represented defiance against tyranny. For the crew, they became sacred documents. Every shot of the tunnel was a tribute to ingenuity and sacrifice. The film didn't just recreate an escape, it resurrected an act of faith in human or endurance. Bonus fact. The crew buried a real tribute beneath the set. Before dismantling the set, the cast and crew gathered inside the main tunnel. They buried a metal box containing the names of the real 76 escapees and their countries. It remains hidden somewhere in the Bavarian forest today. No one knows its exact location. That secret capsule turned a movie set into a memorial. What started as fiction became living history buried beneath the soil that once held real courage. The Great Escape was never about tunnels or triumph. It was about remembrance and resilience. The Great Escape still beats like a heartbeat of defiance 60 years later. It wasn't just a war film. It was a lesson in endurance, collaboration, and rebellion. If you felt those ghosts stir, hit subscribe and stay tuned because there are more secrets buried beneath cinema's surface. Some escapes never end.